Hi and welcome to Morbid History. Today we're gonna talk about some of the most evil women from our dark past, with a knack for murder, poison, and the occasional bloodbath. Let's get into it.
Morbid History.
Irma Grese, the Blonde Beast. We kick off our dark exploration with Irma Grese, known as the Blonde Beast or the Beautiful Beast. She was one of the youngest and most notorious SS officers in World War II. She was born in 1923 and at a very early age, 17 actually, she joined the female branch of the Hitler Youth. And it just spiraled from there. Aged 19, she began her horrid career. She started working as an officer in Auschwitz, where she quickly gained a reputation for her sadistic nature. She was tall, striking, very blonde, and she had blue eyes, so the ideal for the Aryan supreme human Ubermensch or whatever. One account of Irma actually reads as thus: "She was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Her face has an angelic clarity, and her blue eyes were the liveliest and most innocent eyes imaginable." Which is pretty terrifying, since she was a notorious sadist. Prisoners reported of her being extremely cold and ruthless, often appearing very cheerful while delivering brutal punishments. She carried around a whip and commanded a pack of German shepherds who were trained to attack at her whim. Survivors recounted horrifying tales of her staging mock executions, using the prisoners in her sadistic games, and even choosing prisoners for the gas chamber with a smile on her face. But she was most well known for how she treated the females in the camp. She would lash with her whip at their bosoms so that they became infected and had to go and get surgery without anesthesia, and when they did so, she was known to stand there in total ecstasy watching as these women screamed in pain and agony, and if they were too loud, she would kick them with her extremely hard boot. A terrifying woman. Either way, after the war, she was captured and put to trial, where she faced charges of war crimes, of course, and throughout the trial she maintained her innocence and deflected blame on her superiors and all that, but yeah, she claimed that she was only following orders. But at 22 years old, she was executed by removal of her air supply while dangling from a rope. Yeah. She left behind her a legacy of cruelty and a reminder of what can happen if you give the wrong person too much power. Next one! Madame LaLaurie, the sadistic socialite of New Orleans. So now, let's drift into the eerie candlelit parlors of 1830s New Orleans. Madame Delphine LaLaurie was the epitome of high society. Known for her charm, but first and foremost her wealth, she hosted large soirees where the elite mingled and partied, totally unaware of the horrors going on upstairs. She might have seemed like the perfect hostess on the outside, but rumors started to circulate on how she treated the people that she owned, aka enslaved people. Neighbors reported seeing her viciously beating these enslaved individuals. But it wasn't until a huge fire broke out in her mansion in 1834 that the full extent of her extreme cruelty came to light. When the fire brigade finally arrived, they discovered something horrifying in the attic. Several enslaved individuals, chained, disfigured, and suffering from horrific injuries. Some were starved, others had undergone primitive kinds of surgeries without anesthesia, and many bore scars and signs of extensive beating. One woman was said to have been mutilated beyond recognition, and her fingers and limbs cut off during LaLaurie's sadistic experiments. Public outrage was swift, and a mob went ahead and vandalized the mansion, understandable, as they sought revenge. Good old revenge there, but sadly Madame LaLaurie had fled to France and escaped justice. The mansion today is one of the most haunted buildings in New Orleans and linked to many a paranormal thing, a majig, which I can see that. Just like the things that happened in there, the extreme amounts of evil. Like, how could it not be a paranormal hotspot? Either way, next one. Catherine de Medici, the poisoner queen of France. So now, dear friends, we're going back to the 1500s to the opulent and treacherous court of Catherine de Medici. She ruled France with cunning, manipulation, a big old splash of religious fanaticism, and also allegedly some poison. Catherine was born in Italy to the infamous Medici family, but at age just 14 she would move to France to marry Prince Henry, who would later become King of France. It wasn't until after the death of her much beloved husband Henry that she became regent, because her sons were too young to rule, and she had to navigate the tumultuous waters of French politics during the wars of religion, Catholics hating Protestants and vice versa. And despite her very high status as queen, she was not safe, and there were plots against her, especially from the Protestant factions. This led her to commit some ruthless crimes. Well, she upped her ante, and it's said that she employed poisoners to eliminate her enemies discreetly. Fun! Poison, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but her most infamous, terrifying act was actually the St. Bartholomew Day Massacre in 1572, when thousands, and I mean thousands, from 5,000 to 30,000 Protestants, many of them wealthy and prominent, had gathered to celebrate the marriage of the king's sister, when they were suddenly and brutally murdered in a single night. Catherine had orchestrated this entire bloodbath to eliminate religious threats. And that fun mass murder is what cemented her in our dark history as a ruler willing to sacrifice thousands of innocent lives for her own ambition. Next, Mary Tudor, Bloody Mary. So, we're staying in the 1500s, but we're turning to another huge member of the I Hate Protestants Club. Mary Tudor, also known as Bloody Mary. Why? We're gonna get into it. Born in 1516 to Henry Tudor. We all know that one, the one who liked to chop the heads off his wives, and his first wife, who did not get her head chopped off, but anyway, Catherine of Aragon. Mary faced significant challenges throughout her life, starting with her father's split from his mother and the Catholic Church, and also establishing the Church of England instead. Mary found herself estranged from her father and labeled a bastard. So, with her mother divorced and her father off marrying and beheading a few other wives, the years of struggling started for real. She wanted to be seen as legit, aka not a bastard, and be accepted. And she got that in 1553 when she ascended the throne as Mary Tudor, Queen of England, or Bloody Mary. She took the throne with one goal in mind, and that was to restore the Catholic faith, and she tried doing that by burning over 300 people at the stake. not a good plan. Weirdly enough, that one act of state-sanctioned violence against innocent people did nothing but give even more support to the Protestant cause. And when she finally kicked the bucket in 1558, unsubscribed from her life subscription, her sister Elizabeth I came to the throne and established the Protestant faith again. And there it stayed. And her legacy goes on as Bloody Mary because she just burned 300 innocent lives for absolutely nothing. Moving on, Amelia Dyer, the baby farmer. Victorian England, yes, the 1800s. We all know that it's not just about tea and scones, it's also bloody murder, you know? And it's big share of darkness. And one of those people who embodied this darkness was Amelia Dyer, known as the baby farmer. She was born in 1837 and started her career life as a nurse. And that allowed her to gain a lot of trust from words are hard. People who were poor and couldn't take care of their youngins. They had babies and they couldn't take care of them. Thank you. So yeah, instead of being a good person about it and trying to do good in life, she instead concocted a scheme, a horrifying scheme, and made profit. So, Dyer preyed on the desperation of these poor mothers and promised to take care of their unwanted infants for a fee. But of course, sadly, the infants would soon meet a very tragic end. She would starve, drug, or in other ways unsubscribe them, and pocketing the cash. As the years went on, she would become pretty sloppy with her work, and that would ultimately lead to her downfall. Dyer's horrific crimes would come to light one day when a body of an infant girl was washed up or found in the Thames. I think that she hadn't put weights in it and it had plopped up to the surface, and in the wrapping, her paper that she had wrapped around it, they could actually find her address. That led authorities straight to her, where they unearthed her ghastly trade. This soon uncovered a disturbing pattern of disappearing infants linked to Amelia, and it's believed that she disposed of dozens or even hundreds of innocent babies. In 1896, she was arrested, put to trial, and of course, removed from this earth by the slip of a rope. Sadly, baby farming is not a one and done thing. It was going on a lot during our dark history, but Amelia Dyer is the most famous of them all. Horrifying woman. Next, Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess. Finally, we arrive at maybe the most infamous women in history, Elizabeth Bathory, and we're back in the 1500s for some reason. That was a time to be evil. She was born in 1560 in Hungary and came from an extremely noble, high-ranking society. Thus, she was well-educated and all that jazz. But beneath that polished exterior, there lurked extreme darkness and sadism that would lead to her becoming known as one of the most notorious female serial cancelers. Following the death of her much beloved husband, who was also a big old sadist and terrifying in his own right, she became obsessed with looking beautiful. She was already a handsome woman for sure, but she wanted to be eternally beautiful and young, and she thought to accomplish this, she needed to bathe in blood, but not any blood. It had to be young, beautiful women, virgins. And how do you get that? Virgin blood enough to bathe in? Murder. Bathory would lure young women, often from poor families, to the castle and promising them work. And once they entered her castle, they would usually disappear without a trace. It's estimated that 600 young women walked into her castle just to go poof, disappear. Survivors describe torture. She just couldn't help herself, it seems. She did get the blood, but that was just not enough. She also wanted to torture the girls that she had there. They would starve, she would beat them, and sometimes even let them freeze to demise, and she derived lots of pleasure in doing so. Her heinous crimes eventually caught the attention of authorities, finally leading to her arrest in the early 1600s. However, instead of taking away her rights for a life subscription, they just locked her in a room in house arrest, where she would go and demise after a few years. Her accomplices, she had a few of those, they were sentenced to demise though, so that's something. Her life and crimes still inspire horror movies and novels and music, everything, well up to this day. She lives on forever as a terrifying vampire serial killer. A legacy as good as any, I suppose. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this ramble. Do you know any super evil women that I could make a part 2 about? Let me know down below. Like, comment and subscribe. It's a good algo boost and it helps the channel so much. Giant hicking thanks to my members, my YouTube members and my Patreon members. It's thanks to you I'm able to do this channel. If you want to support, go check that out. I upload an exclusive every week and also some vlogs and other fun stuff whenever I'm not being a hermit stuck in this little room, which is basically 99% of my time, but sometimes I go out and I do things in Sweden and I make a vlog about it. Stay amazing, stay hydrated, but most of all, stay morbid, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye!